The SitRep for today, the 23rd of August 2022. I'm Gads, this is Ragnarok Survival, and as always, the SitRep or the Situation Report, where I try and scratch my head and think about what is going on in this world. Try and wrap my knuckle-dragging brain around what is actually going on by looking at news stories over the past 24 hours. And then thinking, how can we best prepare ourselves for the uncertain future that is ahead of us? So, welcome. Thank you for joining me again. As always, I really appreciate it. A little bit of news, which is exciting to me. You might not give a shit at all, but I just crossed over the threshold of 500 subscribers on YouTube. So I just want to say thank you very much to everyone who hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hopefully, I will say some words that enlighten you or help your day out somehow. Make it at least worthwhile that you watch this. Don't want to put anyone else down. Thank you for listening on the podcast or on Instagram as well. I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone who listens. So anyway, let's jump into it without any further ado. Not much popping up in the news coming from Australia or New Zealand or the Pacific today. So I'm going to slide up past there, straight past Southeast Asia and go into China. One that popped into my eyeballs this morning, China plans cloud seeding to protect grain crop from drought. Now, as I imagine, if you're watching this channel, you're probably relatively switched on to what cloud seeding is and what's going on there. I'm not doing this I'm taking off the tinfoil hat for a second. I'm not doing this from a conspiracy theorist sort of angle. All I'm saying is that cloud seeding has been a technique that has been used for many, many years to try and increase rainfall in certain areas. It's pretty foolish, I think, at least, to try and manipulate the weather on that sort of scale. But, we do that. So it's pumping in chemicals to the atmosphere and into certain clouds in order to encourage rain in certain areas. This is what China's doing. China's going through a drought at the moment, like a lot of other parts of the world. So they're going to start cloud seeding. Why would that be coming in into my important little inbox this morning? It's more that when China does something, they don't just do it for a suburb or a selected area. China do things en masse. And so when they start doing geoengineering sort of techniques like this, they're going to be doing it en masse. They're going to be doing it large, and it's going to have large scale effects. Not to mention, also yesterday, I was talking about just this sort of thing where China is having droughts and they're having floods in other parts of their country. So watch this space as we have more. That's one of those reasons where I always harp on about weather effects. And I'm going to get to a flooding story again today. But this is what we're going to see. And when we're doing things like messing around with the weather and then wondering, scratching our heads going, oh, why are we getting flooding everywhere all of a sudden? What's going on? It just shows me how little foresight the people in charge of us have at the moment. Anyway, concerning things. What else is happening in China? This one coming to me from one of my sources on Instagram. Sent me a really interesting story. It was actually like an infographic, but talking about how China prepared a report back in April when they were starting to gear up towards the sanctions. So what we saw was the raft of sanctions coming out on Russia, and everyone said, yep, these sanctions are working. Look how we're destroying Russia. Now we're sitting downstream for that. We're seeing that that's not true at all. And certain countries, especially ones like Turkey, not to point any fingers, but Turkey, China, India, Pakistan, Venezuela, Brazil, all these sorts of countries are buying the Russian garage sale of oil and natural gas at the moment. So Russia not only has not been hurt by these sanctions, is actually, by a lot of reports, making bank from these sanctions. They are selling more oil than they have ever before. Record sales of oil. Anyway, China obviously was watching what happened with the Russian situation very closely, and are still watching what's happening with the Russian situation very closely, because it's pretty clear that they're going to want to go take Taiwan in the not too distant future. So in this report, they came out and said, if sanctions are leveled, if I'll just quote this quote, if the US and allies move to slap sanctions, our country will return to a planned economy closed off to the world, end quote. What does that mean? You might look at that and go, oh, what? So you're going to take your bat and ball, go home? Like, who cares? Everyone should care. China knows that economically they have the world bent over a barrel right now. They can kind of do what they want because as they have shown us, their little hiccups, their issues with their supply chain, with their manufacturing has huge effects on the world. We all suffer when China gets a cold and decides to lock up one of its cities. As we saw just with the last lockdown that happened, or a series of lockdowns that happened within China, and how much of an effect that is actually having on our supply chain still, and will for at least 1 to 2 years into the future. So if China was to switch off and say, no, we're closing down, we're going back to our planned economy, because they opened up their economy a number of years ago, probably when they hit that trigger point of common sense and actual reality that most communists, I think, will end up getting to, where they figure out, oh, actually communism doesn't work and we need to actually open up our economy to the rest of the world and move into a more laissez-faire type economy in order to allow our people to survive and thrive. So they hit that point, and they did. And ever since then, China has been in this kind of state of, hey, we're a communist country, but it's like, yeah, are you really? Because you've got businesses and stuff. You put a lot of pressure on those businesses, but in reality, you're like, I don't know, communism light, really. Your authoritarianism, that's for sure. Your totalitarianism, that I'll agree with that, but communism, maybe. Anyway, they said they've threatened they'll just pull back out. What does that have to do with anything? That's overnight kind of $6 billion gone out of the world's economy, like instantaneously. And like that's going to have larger and larger effects. That would be the beginning of the end of the economic system that we have. It wouldn't be the beginning, because the beginning's already started, of the end of our economic system. But it would be more than a nail in the coffin, I'd say. It'd be several nails in the coffin, and maybe even a shovel full of dirt on that coffin. So, that's interesting that they're throwing that kind of information out. Warnings, more warnings. We're seeing more warnings, and it's more what it points to me at least, is like it's pretty obvious they're going to make a move on Taiwan, and it's going to be, like I said, in the not too distant future. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you when that's going to be. Could be 3 weeks from now. It could be 7 years from now. That's all within the scope of China's planning. Right, let's jump over into Middle and South Asia. Bangladesh. Bangladesh to cut school hours, office hours in order to save power. They are struggling with paying their power bills, which shouldn't be a bit of a surprise to anyone, really, because that's happening pretty much everywhere. But they're going to cut school and office hours in order to reduce electricity demand. It's shut down, it being Bangladesh, has shut down all 10 of its diesel power plants after the Russia invasion of Ukraine, and how that drove up the cost of imported fuel. So imported fuel is too much. In this day and age, diesel power plants, interesting tactic that they've relied on diesel power plants, but they've shut them down anyway. Where are we going to make that shortfall up? That's what I want to know as a world. Where are we going to make that shortfall up? At the moment, it appears to be coal. Some people are starting to come around to this nuclear idea, but some are very much not. And I'll get on with that story in a second. Jump over to Pakistan. Obviously, I was talking about Pakistan yesterday with the whole Imran Khan arresting sort of thing that's going on. Well, latest news on that is Imran Khan has been granted protective bail. So the courts have granted him protective bail until Thursday. So he's officially been, hasn't been arrested, I guess, but charges have been laid against him for terrorism or on anti-terrorism laws within the country. And bail has been granted until Thursday. So it's a bit of a stay of reprieve as far as I can see for Pakistan. No rioting happening until Thursday, although I believe tensions are still increasing in that country as we speak. The local authorities are threatening some sort of backlash or lockdown up to and including martial law. So they're looking at this situation. They're going, all right, we want to go and arrest Imran Khan. The people who are supporters of him are rising up. They're threatening that they're going to actually cause civil unrest. So already the government's coming out and playing the martial law, making preparations for martial law within that country or within Islamabad, around the Islamabad region. Very interesting stuff going on there. Maybe to do with this, maybe not. Maybe it's just a coincidence that this piece of information is coming out at the same time. But political hecklers in Pakistan have been threatened with blocked biometric IDs and bank accounts. So hecklers and harassers are likely to find themselves in hot water soon, as they may get their national identity cards blocked and will be unable to operate their bank accounts after a recent warning issued by the Interior Minister. Terrifying stuff. So, you know, this is the world that we're living in, and this is where we're heading more towards when we're going digital IDs, and people are like, yeah, we should go digital IDs. You know what? Let's just get chips put in our hands so we can pay for things with our hands and we can be tracked and everything's great. I love it. And all our identification stuff is online now and it's all accessible by the government. Well, that means that the government can shut it down anytime they want and can restrict you from doing stuff. So this is people who are talking out against the government now. This government who's doing a whole heap of, you know, dubious things, as all governments do, in my opinion, locking down on these people and threatening that they will basically shut them down, that they can't do anything until they do what they're told. It's a terrifying situation as far as I'm concerned. I hate this sort of idea. You know, governments restricting freedom of speech. I don't like it in any way, shape, or form. All right, let's jump over into Europe now. A lot of stuff coming out of the UK, so I'll just whip through these. UK warned of a humanitarian crisis coming this winter as people cannot pay for fuel bills or cannot even get access to fuel to heat their homes. They're going to have colder homes, and colder homes in a cold environment equal more sickness, more serious sickness, and more death. On top of that, you know, we're going to be seeing people fall into a poverty sort of situation with the increased cost of living the way it is in UK at the moment. So not good signs for UK, especially heading into the colder months. Speaking about that, Brits to fire up wood stoves to avoid freezing this winter. So if for some reason you are watching me from Britain, I'm not sure why you'd be doing that. Listen to some sort of Antipodean colonial boy hanging out on the other side of the earth. But if you are, be warned that if you don't have a wood fire heater and you don't have plenty of wood built up, like the fact that this is already news tells me that there's probably already a short supply of it. There's going to be a run on these things if there hasn't been already. I haven't talked to anyone that I know in the UK in the past 48 hours, but it wouldn't surprise me. So this is coming out of one of the UK's largest firewood suppliers, that they're saying, hey, look, demand has already started to grow and it's going to go through the roof. We're predicting it to go through the roof in the next couple of months. So kind of scary stuff. And if you think about this, you extrapolate this out to everyone, whoever you are, wherever you are, these are the sorts of things that you want to try and build into your life, that you do have a wood fire heater or you've got some way to heat your home that's alternative to outside sources. It's not based on the electricity grid. It's not based on you getting LPG gas in or anything like that. LP gas, it's not LPG gas, right? You know what I'm talking about. It's like an ATM machine. So yeah, building these sorts of things into your life. I was out in the land yesterday or the day before with the chainsaw, cutting down some trees, cutting up some logs, then bringing it home, splitting the wood. So I've got something to put in the fire. Not that we've got a shortage of firewood here in Australia, but these are the sorts of things that I've integrated into my life now. And that's kind of what I encourage people to do, is that when we're thinking about prepping, it's not just this like doomsday prepping where we're putting stuff away in a bunker somewhere with bullets and beans. It's actually integrating your life and switching your life over towards, you don't have to be totally self-reliant, but just towards self-reliance. Angling it that way, just aiming that way, having some things in your life, or having the ability that that quite easily, if for some reason, say the power went out and it never came back on, that you're not going to die, that you can still survive. UK, the largest UK port is hit with massive strike. And I've talked about these in the past, that strikes, I think, are going to become more prevalent as unions, who are basically communists, and smell blood in the water. They see their opportunity now. They're like, supply chains are down. Let's kick it while it's down. Let's kick everyone while they're down, and we get what we want. I'm not saying unions are totally bad or anything. I'm just saying they've got that very much communist slant towards them. So you've got unions here who are looking at the situation. They can see things are bad, and they're kind of jumping in and going, yep, now's our time to strike. And that's going to exacerbate the situation. That's the bad side of it. The good side of it that unions are doing here is, quite rightly looking at it and going, hey, the cost of living is going through the freaking roof right now for individuals. None of us are getting paid anymore. In fact, a lot of us are getting paid less, as companies are going, shit, everything's costing a lot more. Where are we going to save money? Let's cut people's salaries. So salaries go down, cost of living goes up. That's a recipe for disaster. So the good side of things here is unions are stepping in and starting to go, hey, we need to actually increase people's salary as well. Although if you've even got you don't need a master's of economics or anything to figure this out, that at some point something's not going to work here. If we have inflation of cost of living and we have increasing salaries, it heads to places which are not good. But we're going to head to that place anyway, I think now, regardless. We're already on our way, unless something happens that dramatically changes that shift, in fact, just changes the cost of living and brings that back down, then we're going to hit a brick wall pretty soon. Hosit John says, insulation, foam and mats, and get heavy curtains to keep draft away. Yep. So this is one thing about heating that people don't often think about. It starts here, right? It starts with you. It starts with what you're wearing, what insulation you have on you, what clothing you're wearing, and making good decisions with the clothing that you wear. It starts with you, with how much physical activity you're doing as well. So if you're sitting down, you're going to be colder. Getting up, moving around a bit more, and making sure you're doing that. Then your immediate surroundings. So maybe if you have the ability, putting good insulation into your walls, into your roof, and if you can, underfloor as well. Thinking about things like, if you've got a concrete slab, then using rugs and stuff like that, using heavier curtains and block out blinds and stuff like that in the winter, so you're trapping heat in. And then even thinking about, in an emergency, what can I do here? So if you are in a really, you see that? It's so cold in here that actually I can see my breath. Great example of it. But if you have more things in a room, like I do, I've got junk everywhere here at the moment. It's not designed that way. It's just me being a shit fight. But that's actually going to make the room warmer because I've got more things in here. If I create smaller spaces, I can heat them more efficiently. So in an emergency, having a tent and then setting that tent up inside a room might be a good idea. Or just picking a room and going, okay, this one here, we're going to heat this room, and closing that room off, not having doors open, windows open, and things like that. So thinking about all these sorts of things. John also says, insulate your lofts. very effective. Know that engineers say more than max 30 centimeters on a loft is useless. I'm assuming you're meaning like the ceiling space, the above ceiling space. Insulation of stone, rock wool. The mice and squirrels don't want to live in that. Anything that keeps the mice out. We don't have squirrels here, but we definitely got mice. And anti-kindness as well. Anti-kindness. These little mice / rat-like native Australian animals that just love to chew shit. They don't eat it either. They just chew things and tear chunks off it with their gnawing little teeth and then leave it all around scattered. Like, they just like to destroy shit. They annoy me. Anyway, okay, this one's obviously important to me because it's about pets. It's about animals. It's about dogs as well. Everyone knows that I love dogs. So this is a story about the sharp rise in abandoned pets as cost of living skyrockets in the UK. This is the kind of stuff that makes my blood boil. I foresaw this back during COVID, where I saw the prices of animals going up. So I had a dog that was getting on. She was about 14. I knew she was, probably going to pass away soon. So I started looking out for another dog, and then got a German Shepherd for some crazy reason. No, I love her. She's great. Anyway, so I was looking around and I could not find a dog for under probably $5,000 or $6,000. It was insane because the demand was so high. And I thought, well, all these people are here locked down in their house. They can't deal with themselves. And so they're going out and getting a pet to distract themselves. What's going to happen when the lockdown ends? What's going to happen when people are going back into work and that dog is just sitting around their house all day and starts destroying their shit? Well, I foresaw that there would be a sharp rise in abandoned pets. And that's exactly what's happening in the UK at the moment. Not necessarily just because of what I said, but also the cost of living, I think, is interacting with that as well. So it's a double-edged sword there, or a double whammy that, there's probably a lot of people who've gone out and bought pets that probably had no real place having a pet in the first place. A pet is a lifelong thing. A pet is something that should be seriously considered. In fact, like, this is the sort of thing that people should be means tested on. You don't go and buy a house on a whim. Well, people do, actually. You don't go buy a new car or a house on a whim. You usually budget it and you go, okay, what if times get tough? What if I lose my job? This is what you should be doing, at least. If you're a good prepper and you're doing your financial prepping as well, you should be looking at things, go, what if things go wrong? Do I have enough money to survive, say, a month or 2 months if I didn't have a job, if I didn't have income? Do I have enough to pay for my car, pay for my mortgage? Do I have enough to feed my animals and my family, right? And probably in that order too. My family and my animals, right? That's what I'd be looking at. And if it's me personally, and look, I've actually been in this situation in my life in the past, where I was like not earning a lot of money and times got a bit tough a few weeks there. And I did have to make the choice. I remember walking in and going, oh, I've only got this much money. Right? Well, it's either my dog eats or I eat. And it was 100% of those choices. There wasn't very many of them, but 100% of them, I can tell you, it was my dog eating. 100% of the time. I would much rather my dog eat and I go hungry. I know I can deal with it. I know I can understand it. I know I can rationalize it. But the dog just goes, I'm hungry. Plus, dog, when you're buying stuff for dogs, you can kind of buy lesser quality, so you can get more value for money there. Anyway, that made my blood boil this morning. I hate that. So if you are thinking about getting a dog out there for whatever reason, I would encourage you to go and look at abandoned dogs now. That's what rabbits are for, definitely. I was living in a city, though, and I didn't have access to firearms at the time or even out hunting, so it was a bit difficult to get rabbits back then. All right, EU sanctions on Russia nullified by Turkish import boom. So again, like I was saying earlier, we've got a whole heap of countries that are buying like crazy off the Russians at the moment because it's the giant Russian garage sale. European Alps hit by severe flooding. Again, more flood situations that are going on in this part of the world where we're having also drought and extreme heat waves. One does affect the other, believe it or not. Swiss police chief comes out and speaks about his fears of social unrest from winter power shortages. Quote, population will rebel, end quote. So they're looking down the barrel there. They can obviously see what's coming on. And I think he's probably quite right. I don't know if the Swiss will, but maybe they will. But as Europe is moving into the colder months and increased cost of living, decreased access to fuels, they're going to have a really cold, hard time. It's not going to be a pretty winter. That's the picture that I'm trying to paint for everyone every single day when I'm talking about Europe. It's not going to be a pretty picture in the next few months. It's going to get worse. And social unrest is going to be a big factor here, I believe. Germany is to prioritize coal shipments across rail networks over passenger trains amid worsening energy crisis. So they're saying, no, I don't want paying customers on my trains. We need coal only. That's probably a fair bit of pressure coming in from government there. And again, if you have read Atlas Shrugged, this is directly from the pages of Atlas Shrugged. Like, Atlas Shrugged is almost a roadmap of what's happening at the moment. Germany rules out nuclear to save gas. So the economy minister, Robert Habeck, said on Sunday that Germany should not keep nuclear power plants. So they did an assessment. They're saying, hey, should we keep our nuclear power plants? Should we upgrade them? Should we maintain them? And short answer, no, we're not going to do it. No, let's just turn the coal back on, go straight back down coal. So they're ramping up the coal. They're going for it. They're still not interested in nuclear at all. France looks like it might be switching nuclear back on and going down that path. A few other countries within Europe are kind of leaning that way and looking at the writing on the wall and going like, I think we might have to. But Germany is definitely not, for a number of reasons. And I'll quote what Habeck said. Quote, it is the wrong decision giving the little we would save, end quote. So possibly a financial decision. That is one thing about nuclear that you'd find it hard to argue with, that it hasn't historically made financial sense that every single nuclear plant that I know of that's ever been created is always subsidized by the government that creates it. So financial sense, maybe winning out there. Coal's cheaper. Also some crazy stuff about coal too. A lot of countries not even like banning digging out their own coal because they don't want to support the coal industry, but they'll quite happily let shittier coal be dug out of the ground by other countries. So, yeah. Peter Rouse says Switzerland 100% hydro for power, which is probably an issue when we're thinking about the drought conditions that Europe have been suffering through and the low river levels that they're seeing at the moment. So that could be also having an impact with hydro. I imagine it would be, at least. Peter Rouse on YouTube now says New Zealand banned coal but imported coal. A lot of countries are doing that. Peter Rouse on YouTube, are you the same Peter Rouse who's on Instagram? Are you talking to me through two different means? That's interesting. You really want to get a message across. Okay, you are. Cool. I just thought it was a massive coincidence there's two Peter Rouses out there. All right. Also in Germany, one of Germany's largest AdBlue. For those who don't know, AdBlue is an additive which goes into diesel engines in order to reduce emissions. So most larger diesel engines utilize it. Pretty much all farming machinery that uses diesel utilizes AdBlue. Trucks use AdBlue. And within Europe, the majority of consumer vehicles, so small scale vehicles, i.e. cars we drive, that are diesel, also by law have to have AdBlue in it. AdBlue requires urea in order to manufacture it. Urea comes out of a number of countries, China being one of the big ones. And a few months ago, China said, we're not exporting any more urea, closing it down, as well as urea is also used in fertilizer. So fertilizer is a bit of an issue, obviously with food. But then if you can't grow the food with the fertilizer, or if you do have the fertilizer and you can grow the food, you can't do anything with it because you can't pull it out of the ground because your AdBlue is required for your farming machinery. And even if you did pull it out of the ground, where are you going to truck it to with trucks that use AdBlue? So you can see the issue here. So one of Germany's largest AdBlue and fertilizer manufacturers has threatened to stop production totally because of the rise of price at the moment. Peter Rouse says, get a car before 2010 and you don't need it. Yes. And there are a number of manufacturers in certain countries that also make cars that don't require AdBlue. Toyota, for example, was doing it for a while. You can always look at certain points and there's inputs that go into cars. And so if you go before then you're going to get a car that doesn't require that. However, you're going to get a car that has much more wear and tear on it, and maybe parts are harder to get. If you get a car that's made before 1998, a four-wheel drive made before 1998, chances are it will not be electronically fuel injected, which means that you don't have to worry about that part of it. So there's always points where we can look back and go, yep, get that car. If AdBlue is an issue for you, if you are using AdBlue in your vehicle at the moment, I would seriously consider doing something about that right now. Let me just catch up with a couple of things here. Jose John says, I'll send you a postcard as well. He also says AdBlue patent as owned by Drums, the German Truck Owner Association. The EU set is as a law. German truck owners get royalties per litre. Yep, mafia, totally. And this is not surprising in any way, really. But anyway, this manufacturer here is looking at saying that we're going to close down. We're not going to make any AdBlue. We're not going to make any fertilizer because the costs are too much to us right now. This is coming on the back of also throughout Europe, but especially in Germany, a number of nickel, a number of aluminium manufacturers are also saying the same thing. These two things, nickel and aluminium, are used in I cannot even tell you how much nowadays. Like it would be a frightening percentage of manufactured goods require these two inputs. But they require a lot of energy to make. Energy costs go up. It costs more to make them. And at some point, especially when you've got governments who are going, oh, we're just going to price cap this. You can't charge more than this X amount for this. They're going to go, well, we're not going to make it losing money. In fact, we're not going to make it not making money. We're not going to make it making a tiny bit of money. We're going to make it if we can make a good chunk of money. All right. That's what we're going to do. That's how business works. And so they're just saying, look, we're going to stop manufacturing. Again, directly out of the pages of Atlas Shrugged. Last one that I'll talk about is in Ukraine. This one is interesting for a number of reasons. There's something going on here. There's something going on underneath the surface. There's something portending to doom within Ukraine at the moment, and it's looking odd. So my source from over in this area sent me this story, and I'll tell you the story, and I'll tell you what they said to me. Where is it? Ukraine, this is in CNN. So it's only probably half lies. It's from CNN. Take that as you will. Ukrainian cities ban Independence Day. So all their Independence Day events have been banned. People cannot go out and celebrate it. Ukrainian cities ban Independence Day events as Zelensky warns of particularly ugly attacks. So they're saying particularly ugly attacks are coming. What's happening there? Why? How do they know that information? What exactly is these particularly ugly attacks? What is Russia going to do? And how would Ukraine already know about it? And is this a false flag? Who knows what's going on there? But my source has said that yes, Ukrainians, friends that they have who are Ukrainians, are at the moment, right now, very worried about the next couple of days. Why the next couple of days? What's happening? I have no idea. But something appears to be going on there, or something has them rattled. People to the point where my source is getting reports that they're stocking up their bunkers and going to stay in their bunkers. That there's other reports of people stockpiling goods. People are not heading out in the streets. People are not, they're doing their last shops and then closing it down. Something going on there. Who knows? Maybe nothing. Maybe it's just more Ukraine fluff that's flying out there, more Ukraine propaganda, fear porn that's been happening. But it is interesting that the officials, and especially the President Zelensky, is warning that Russia may carry out some sort of, quote, particularly ugly attacks. What does that look like? Who knows? But that's it. That's it for today. That's all I've got. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for everyone who watched today and people who chucked in comments. Really appreciate it. Would love to know what's happening in your neck of the woods, what you're seeing, what the vibe is, what you're feeling right now. If you've chatted to other people, what they are feeling. Always interested to know that sort of stuff. So if you've got any questions, shoot them through to me. But if not, as they say in Iceland, Alltaf vidbúinn, which apparently means always prepared in Icelandic, which is very close to Old Norse. Interesting, huh? All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.